My name is Manoj Chugh, and a very warm welcome once again to yet another, hopefully, exciting session with Express Computers called TechVision. Today, we are going to talk about budgeting and cost optimization and what are some of the practical approaches that CIOs can take to manage IT budgets and reduce costs. Given the overall cautious approach that most businesses are taking today, given the pressure on CIOs to manage IT budgets and reduce costs, I would say is immense. And just imagine, this is further complicated by the pressure from business leaders on their CIO counterparts to innovate so that one can enable the creation of new revenue opportunities, which are, as we all know, built on the foundations of digital. Delivering on innovation is a direct contradiction, in fact, to the demand of reducing IT costs. And therefore, the pressure gets even compounded much, much more. Organizations are looking for very quick, double quick, I would say, return on investment on new investments around projects led and based on digital. In fact, over 90% of IT leaders have stated that innovation is their top priority, and they're betting on 25% of their revenue coming in from these new offerings in the next 5 years, while they're trying to pressure the CIO to reduce IT budgets. Isn't that amazing? Almost sounds like an oxymoron. So it is not surprising that CEOs are urging IT departments to free up operational costs in favor of growth-oriented opportunities so that one can secure the future of the business. But we all know that streamlining budgets in a targeted way without compromising on key business priorities or increasing business risk or forsaking growth is a difficult, if not an impossible task. So, how does one embark on this almost seemingly impossible journey of cost optimization when there are such huge demands on the IT organization? I think it starts with and boils down to the need for IT leaders to collaborate very, very closely with their business counterparts so that they can ensure that the priorities are aligned so that the organization's overarching goals are not compromised. Yes, IT spending should be aligned to business objectives and business goals. And it is imperative that we implement IT governance policies and procedures to ensure that IT investments are not just aligned to business goals, but in effect, they are delivering value for money. I would also hasten to add that the importance of cross collaboration between business units is an integral part of managing expenses, and we'll talk about this issue in a bit of detail. The CIO needs to reduce costs quickly and thoughtfully while also positioning the organization to drive new growth and innovation. It is not about or, it is about and. The CIO has to be this master craftsman, the skillful trapeze artist, and that we know is a tough balancing act. So, where do we begin? Here are 10 suggestions that I'd like to make for careful evaluation and consideration. All of them may not be implementable in just one single act, if you will. And we will talk a little bit about the process as well. But first, the suggestions. I'd like to begin with the concept of taking advantage of flexibility that we have built into IT. We all know that when we design systems and implement the build out, we always keep some buffer to cater to fluctuating business needs. We always design for a superior service level. In fact, as much as 30% of IT spend can be saved by taking measures that leverage the flexibility that has been built into the cost base. We could incur savings by revisiting our original assumptions. As an example, for those of us who have our own data centers, we can rearrange the RAID levels of our disk arrays to create more capacity. And that will help us and take us perhaps forward by a few more months, if you will, in terms of saving on costs. The second is to seriously consider, and I know that many organizations have done this already, to create shared services that serve multiple business units. Now, I know business unit leaders will not be happy when all of a sudden they have to depend on a shared service versus a dedicated service. But we know that shared service drives economies of scale up to 20%, believe it or not, in the medium term. You could also consider managed services, and this is a great idea, particularly for regular infra and app support. And the reason you do this is so that your own resources can focus on the strategic and innovation-led projects. And you know that there is a huge pressure on IT to contribute to new revenue streams. So therefore, take your own people and align them in that direction and give the rest BAU stuff, if you will, away as a managed service. Shifting from on-site to remote support can also give you further cost reductions as you negotiate your contracts. The third is that several of us still believe that we have to maintain multiple data centers because of business or regulatory environments. It is important that we work on data center modernization and consolidation. I know it is tough, but it could give us at least 20% savings on our data center budgets. This will also help us to reduce our ongoing energy costs. Application and server virtualization should be at the core of your modernization plan. And I know many of you have already embarked on this journey. We know that this will reduce hardware and maintenance costs. We also know, fortunately today, that vendors are offering pay-as-you-use models, even for infrastructure that is deployed in your own data centers, or if you build your own private cloud. So therefore, modernize your data centers, work with your vendor partners so that you can create a cloud-like environment in terms of flexibility, agility, and cost optimization, so that overall it helps you in terms of budgeting better. The fourth is, if you are looking at a scenario where you've run out of gas with respect to your existing in-house infrastructure, opting now for a cloud-first policy, leveraging the public cloud. And I think this offers a whole spectrum of capabilities, which many of you are aware of, ranging from infrastructure as a service to software as a service. Now, I know that in some industries, it may be difficult to leverage software as a service because of regulatory issues, but certainly infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, looking at the disaster recovery, a public cloud can absolutely be leveraged. While many private and public sector organizations choose cloud services for agility, flexibility, scalability, let us not forget, they also want to achieve cost efficiencies. And we realize that as organizations move to public clouds, uh, you know, they tend to use multiple cloud environments. It's not just a single cloud. You could have one cloud for messaging applications, another running CRM, a third running ERP, a fourth running, your own private applications, if you will. Therefore, having a very strict cloud governance practice in place is super important. And in fact, I suggest that you establish a FinOps practice that will unite IT and finance to achieve the common goal of managing cloud costs, particularly given that business units today are independently procuring a lot of cloud and SaaS-related services that maybe IT gets to know much, much later. Therefore, having a FinOps platform, for example, like Cloudverse, can help you ease the pain, bring visibility, and help you manage your costs much better. We know that cloud has many upsides, but remember, unless we manage the costs well, it could really get out of hand. The fifth suggestion that I have is in terms of reflecting, looking at the mirror, understanding how IT services are being delivered and the associated costs for IT operations. For example, we have IT assets all over our organization. Many times we just focus in terms of tracking which asset is where. It's important to track, but perhaps more important to understand what is the utilization. And the reason why we need to understand this much better is this will help us obviate the need to purchase unnecessary hardware and software when we don't need to. In addition, with business units, many of them sourcing their own solutions independent of IT oversight, the load of IT expenditure can continue unchecked if there is no IT as management tool in place. Having visibility is important. Having a very robust practice around IT asset management is important. Having a governance process in place is incredibly important. And therefore, we need to double down on this. The sixth suggestion I have is to evaluate your current IT spend with the fine tooth comb. Software licenses, maintenance, subscriptions, infrastructure costs. By gaining complete visibility across your organization's tech stack, preferably with a tool that can provide insight across all of these areas, will benefit you significantly. You can certainly gain the insights needed to help you manage better. And I would say set metrics, set thresholds on usage and licensing, because these are potential new areas, new frontiers for cost savings. Establish a baseline of all IT costs, including shadow IT, and separate these out from the digital initiatives. Shadow IT, especially in the age of widespread remote and hybrid working, is an ongoing headache for IT teams and will continue to be so. Therefore, streamlining the use of approved applications across an organization will ensure that you spend less time in solving technical issues which just bloat costs. And certainly that's an area that one needs to control very, very carefully. The seventh suggestion I have is around evaluating your current vendor contracts. I know this is a favorite hobby, pastime, profession for many in the IT business. You have to review whether you are getting value or not. Some enterprise software vendors, for example, charge 17 to 20% of the original license costs for their ongoing support packages. I would say be a bit brave and evaluate third-party software support. Remember, software is the second highest IT spend category industry-wide. The application portfolio represents a large part of an IT budget as well. Therefore, by standardizing, rationalizing your application portfolios, and by making sure that you use innovative mechanisms of saving costs, you could certainly benefit very significantly. The eighth is around robotic process automation and artificial intelligence. We talk a lot about this when we talk about our digital strategies. And we know that these technologies help us to analyze and identify patterns that can then be used to make strategic business decisions. These technologies can identify new insights from data, and we can automate or augment processes that are inefficient within the organization. I think we need to implement bots to augment the capability of our colleagues and enable a more productive work environment within the IT organization, and that will help us to reduce costs. The ninth area, which is my favorite, is to invest in employee training, skilling, upskilling, and retraining. If we do this, we will be able to reduce our dependence on outside consultants and contractors who are far, far more expensive than our own colleagues. Therefore, make sure that you are investing enough in terms of keeping your own teams up to date. Last but not least of all, develop a holistic plan on all possible savings. Bucket them by priority based on their potential size, feasibility, speed of implementation, business impact, and effect on future readiness. This will help make decisions thoughtfully, strategically, and in close alignment to business scenarios, which you would get to learn from your business partners. A question that often crops up is, how does one go about implementing the plan? Great suggestions, Manoj. How do we go about implementing the plan? I recommend that you set up a cross-functional IT team consisting of experts from your own function, the control functions, which include risk, governance, and finance, IT procurement, application architecture, and infrastructure experts. This team should work closely with business units to determine the priorities with which each bucket of cost savings could be implemented. Well, we have spoken about a lot of measures we can take to reduce costs and manage budgets better. However, let us remember that a majority of the costs that an organization incurs are outside of IT. But IT can play a key role, particularly in terms of helping reduce overall costs for the enterprise itself. So let's look as an example on the demand side. Cost optimization can be achieved by doing a thorough evaluation of the current business processes, the resources that are deployed, and the capacity that we have created. IT can implement process automation based on robotics, provide new energy to workflow automation, new techniques, leverage AI so that we can actually deliver the processes in a far more efficient and cost-effective fashion. IT can also help enable new revenue streams by building out digital channels. Therefore, I believe IT can play a pivotal role in not just driving cost-saving programs for themselves, but also enable business so that we can plow those savings back into revenue-generating activities and help our organization deliver top quartile performance. I hope you found this video useful. I hope you will take some of these suggestions on board. May I wish you success as you embark on this exciting journey of doing more with less and helping your business succeed going forward in the future. Thank you for listening in.